Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Controllers Council and Trintech. My name is Kelly Shevlin, and I'll be your host for today. The title of today's webinar is How Automation Can Solve Your Reconciliation Challenges. Before we get started, there are a couple pieces of housekeeping I'd like to go over. Firstly, please note that the lines are on mute to cut down on any background noise. However, you can send through any questions or comments as we go along through the webinar today through the chat or Q&A functionalities on the right-hand side of your screen. Finally, just so you know, we are recording today's webinar session and we will send out an email after the event with a copy of the recording in case you'd like to view it again later. And with that, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Michael Urim from Trintech, who will take us through today's presentation. Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Kelly, and nice to meet everybody virtually today. So just by way of introduction, Kelly mentioned my name is Michael Urim. I'm the Director of Product Management here at Trintech and with ADRA. And just a little bit of background in why I kind of find this topic so kind of personally appealing and why I'm really kind of interested to talk with everybody here today is over the course of my kind of career, I started in accounting in college and really kind of thought I wanted to be a CPA and took all the courses and got all the credits that I wanted to do to do that. And kind of found out and learned a little bit about technology along the way. But during that time, I was also doing intercompany recs for IBM and their US accounting center down in Raleigh. And what we were doing then was kind of manually pulling things from databases. We were manually doing everything in kind of binders, signing everything at the month end. And at the time, it kind of felt like I enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed learning about it. I enjoyed learning about the entire process. But knowing the technology side of it, I always kind of had it in the back of my head. I'm like, man, there's really got to be a better way to do this. I since then kind of transitioned into more of a finance IT treasury role. Then came back to Trintech about 5 years ago to really help solve this challenge in the enterprise space and the mid-market space with really automating reconciliations and helping companies really understand that there is a better way, even if you're in Excel, and we'll kind of touch on a couple other things here, but maybe using something else. Like every now and then we do come across companies who are still talking, and we're talking about highlighters at the time. So it does come up every now and then, but more than often than not, it's kind of Excel. And then we come up and we're like, hey, you start having a conversation about what would good look like to you? What would great look like to you? What would you like to do with that additional time? So those conversations are really, really important to have and really valuable and really fun. So just kind of probably a long-winded introduction, but part of the reason why I kind of mentioned that is because for the agenda today, we're going to start by going through kind of current state. And this is I come from the product management background. A lot of what we're looking at too is what does it look like today? What does the future look like? What does this look like if we're able to automate a lot of it? So then we're going to discuss kind of what are some of the challenges of organizations who are manually doing these things in Excel, or like I mentioned, also be doing something in paper, using highlighters. When I review those challenges, we're going to get then into what is some of the potential options then if I want to look at something different, if I want to look at changing my process, if I want to look at bringing in technology to help me automate this. A lot of these things are really causing a shift in financial leaders' investments and really both technology and in their people. So if you think about it, there's a slightly different skill set, there's different training that's needed to help achieve different goals for the organization. And really after that, I'm going to present some of the real life examples of companies who are struggling with similar things, manual processes, how they went about that and how they overcame those challenges really with a lot of different types of automation. So now with that, let's get into the first part of the webinar today. Now, you probably heard similar things, but we want to give you a slightly different spin on thinking about the current state today. So the recent pandemic over the last 12, 14 months, still really kind of top of mind for a lot of us. You can see me, I'm working from home. We're talking about kind of what does the back to office plan look like? So this is still top of mind really to everybody. And what we really wanted to drill down on is, what does that mean for the Office of Finance? What does that mean for the particular folks who are working in this type of situation today? So it's really accelerated some of the trends that we were seeing in the market even pre-pandemic. It's kind of exposed a number of those outdated systems that really weren't able and weren't adaptive for changing needs, weren't set up for the future. Very early on last year, it was right after spring break, came back from spring break, and we went immediately work from home. And part of that was, we were looking at our portfolio of products that we offer, and one of the pieces that we were kind of talking about is, hey, how can we help? And we offered a couple things out and said, hey, you can use this for free. Like, just we're geared to do this already. We just want to help like people get through this first quarter end, month end close remotely. Like no strings attached. Just go and like use this, because it's going to be painful if you're doing this in person and in the office. So there's just a number of things that folks just really never thought about. So now what we're really seeing is that shift, and there's organizations now making investments in those core systems because they not only need it to survive, but then really also to thrive in this new business and in this new marketplace. So historically, finance function overall, finance accounting is a little bit underappreciated area of the business. And now it's kind of widely understood that it's a critical piece and a critical functionality to the business and overall health of the organization. And that's kind of been the silver lining in all of this. Now, one kind of other anecdote that I want to mention is earlier this week, we, Trintech and Adra, are funded by private equity. And one of our founding, or one of the companies is Vista Private Equities, and they invest only solely in enterprise software solutions. And they have a best practices sharing summit about every year where they bring together the different portfolio companies and kind of go through like, what's the best practice you're learning on this? What'd you learn about that? And earlier, kind of at the kickoff in the keynote, Robert Smith, the CEO, was talking about a very similar topic. He said, the pandemic has really forced and pushed companies to their technology tipping point. And that change is going to be really forever. So that digitalization of customer and supply chain interactions, what I thought was really, really interesting is it's advanced by 3 to 4 years. Sharing of digital and digitally enabling products has advanced 7 years. And there was one other segment, I believe it was specific segments in the Asian markets had actually accelerated 10 years. So it's literally years. It's almost like you took a step in the future from the last 12 months. You not only accelerated 1 year, but we're now 3 to 8 to 7, 7 to 8 years in the future from where we would have ever potentially been had we continued on kind of the current state path. I think that's really exciting.